tucked in the handouts. You can't really see it there very well, so I thought we would just have to hand it out separately. That you'll be familiar with what the ballot will look like. So before we get started, I would just like to start with a few disclaimers. One, I'm not here to sway your political opinion in any way, and we're not here to argue about politics. We are not here to. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you what to vote for. That's your business as an American and as a Christian, what you do. What we're going to do is look at biblical perspectives on political affairs. And the reason we're doing this lesson, and it's immediately following our witness series we just came through, but election is coming up, and we thought we better do it tonight or we're not going to get a chance to. And I promised that when I came here, as a pastor, while Brother Dustin's handing these out and you guys are getting these, I just want to say, clear the air. People always say when you go somewhere to visit, you never talk religion or politics. Have you heard that? If you want to be a good guest, don't talk religion or politics. And then also people will get all up in the air and upset, well, that pastor is too, quote, too political. Well, it's the job of the pastor to shepherd the flock and all aspects of our lives. And let's just be honest, political things affect us all on a huge level. Not just on a small level, but on a huge level. So if I don't talk politics every now and then I am failing you as a pastor. And when pastors don't talk about these things, it's oftentimes because they are intimidated or scared or they're afraid they'll make people mad. Well, I hope I don't make you mad. We're just going to go through some very basic things and answer a few questions. There were a few questions asked of me about some things that are coming up in this midterm election, and I had to research and dig to figure out what I thought about those things. There are certain things when you're talking about politics that have no biblical bearing one way or the other. Let me just say that. There are certain things, like there's some tax issues on the levy or on the ballot that we'll talk about. There's some levy issues on the ballot we're going to talk about. There is no biblical stance that I can give you for those things, okay? I have an opinion on those things, but I'm not really going to force my opinion on you because it might be different than mine. But there are some very specific Christian, God-honoring things that we do have to look at when voting. And this is that sample of the ballot that you can't even see from back there, so we'll just move on. So what we're going to do this evening, we're going to start on the ballot, and we're going to go through everything that's on that ballot that you were just handed. We're going to look at the national ticket, the state ticket, the county ticket, the constitutional amendments, 1 through 4, which a lot of people have questions about. We're going to look at the levies that are only affecting Mason County, West Virginia. And then we're going to look at some biblical perspective on politics and why, as a Christian, it is our duty to be involved in politics. So first off, let's look on the ballot. And we'll go through this real quickly so we can get into the Bible portion of this, because I don't want to feel like a social studies teacher for too long. But if we look on the ballot, let's look at the national ticket first. National ticket, if you look on your ballot there are 3 different individuals that are listed. And when we say national ticket, these individuals are running for a seat in the United States House. So these people go to Washington, D.C. Now, a funny story on me and John Schultz, we went to Capital Connection at the State House, and we went to talk to, it was Moore Capito, which is Shelley Moore Capito's son. He was on our list of people to talk to. Well, we just assumed it was Shelley. We didn't realize that Moore, her son, was also a politician. So we went and we're asking for Shelley Moore Capito's office. They're like, she's not here. She's in Washington, D.C. So we look like a couple of idiots from Mason County that didn't know who our representatives were. But anyways, let's look at this national ticket. And we're just going to go down through. And this is all going to be factual things. And I want to tell you at the end of this how you can be more informed and where you can find these facts for yourself. The first person listed on your ballot is Carol Miller. And she is the incumbent. She's a Republican. And this is what I want to tell you about Miss Miller. She is consistently voting conservative. And when I say she consistently votes conservative, I mean she has a 100% rating with West Virginians for Life. She has a 100% rating with the National Right to Life movement. Anytime an abortion issue has come up, whether she was in the State House as a delegate or since she's been in Washington, D.C., she's always voted pro-life 1,000% of the time. And I'm going to tell you where you can find that facts out. Because did you know you can go online and you can find every single time these people vote, how they vote. It is available. It's public record. It's available if you look for it. But she is consistently conservative on pro-life issues, which is a big deal for me as a Christian and as a pastor and as a pro-life person and as someone that doesn't want to see babies killed. And don't be fooled, just because Roe v. Wade was overturned, that doesn't mean abortion is illegal. It's just left up to the states now. And there's a huge fight in Washington, D.C. every day about how they can backdoor Roe v. Wade back into the national spotlight. But so she does consistently vote conservative, and she's endorsed by all these people. Now, when it says they're endorsed by these people, these organizations say, hey, Shelley, or these people say, Carol Miller, she has values that we support. And there's a whole list of people that support her. But American Israel Public Affairs Committee, they give her 100% rating. Now, why is that important? Because God made a promise to Abraham that whoever blesses you, I will bless. Whoever curses you, I will curse. That is an unconditional covenant that God made with the Jewish people. Abraham, God never went back on that covenant. So as a country, we should support Israel. And if you don't think that, if you think, well, you have a Zionist view, or you shouldn't say that we should be involved in Israel, then you should look historically at all the people that stood against Israel and see what happened to them. Ask Hitler's Germany what it's like to bring Holocaust against God's people. They got knocked back into the Stone Age and are just now recovering from World War II and the atrocities there. So then, anyways, you have these other campaigns, but some that I like to bring to light. The National Rifle Association, because I believe that you should have guns. The NRA endorses her. The Right to Life Committee, West Virginians for Life, all of those people support and endorse Carol Miller. The next person on your ticket, this is a gentleman named Lacey Watson. Now, he's a Democrat, and he's never held public office, so I can't tell you how he votes because he's never voted as an official. He's ran several times and never been elected. He has no official endorsements listed by any constituents or groups. I looked as deep as I could, and there's no group that says, hey, we back this gentleman. I can tell you he had a 0% rating by the NRA in his previous campaign of 2016, and that's as low as you can get, 0%. That's 0 out of 100. I can tell you that he has spoken publicly about being pro-choice. I have a direct quote from Mr. Watson, and it says this, quote, Carol Miller voted no to the Women's Health Protection Act, which would secure access to critical health care as delegated by Congress. Protection of health care services is paramount in West Virginia. I am pro-women's health advocate. It's your body and your choice. Healthy women equals healthy families. I support full access to health services for women in West Virginia. I support the expansion of enrichment programs, including Planned Parenthood and abortion services. So this is his words. This is not me putting words into Mr. Watson's mouth. He's pro-choice. That's about all I could find about him. Then we have this Belinda Fox Spencer. She's an independent candidate. And I'm registered independent, in case anybody wants to know, because I don't know. I feel like I'm an independent spirit. But I'm sure you can all guess how I vote in the fall. But she is an independent. She's never held public office either, so there's no voting record to look at. She has no official endorsements listed. However, she has publicly stated that she is for gun rights and she is pro-life. And she has been listed on Real Clear Politics as sort of conservative. So you have the super conservative, the moderate conservative, and the liberal. Mr. Watson is listed as liberal on that website. Mrs. Miller is listed as conservative, and this young lady is listed as moderately conservative. So those are your national ticket folks. Now, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. It's not my business nor concern to tell you who to vote for. All I will tell you is this. Now, when we go to vote for national representatives of any caliber, be it president or the House of Representatives or senators, any national office, they hold a huge weapon in their hand. And it looks like a button that they push every time they vote, yay or nay. Always pick the people that are going to vote yay more on what we want them to say yay for. When you're looking at national tickets, I never look at Republican, Democrat, Independent, believe it or not. I look at what they stand for, things that they have voted on. And it's harder to do that when they're not an incumbent. And we'll talk about that here in the conclusion of this. People can say a lot of things that they don't do. But we'll talk about that towards the end. Then we got the state ticket. State ticket, super simple. You got Eric Tarr for state senate. He's a Republican. He's running unopposed. So you either vote for Eric Tarr or you write me in if you want. That'd be fine. I would get a kick if I had a small percentage of votes on election night. I would laugh. If I happened to win that way as a joke, I would not take it because I don't think I would fit in any state house. So Eric Tarr, he is a Republican. I can tell you I have met Eric Tarr at Capital Connection, and he does also vote consistently conservative on things that would matter to us. Jim Butler, he also is running unopposed, so that's a pretty easy choice as well. He is a Republican, and I can tell you that Jim also votes consistently conservative on all things. And I would say that Eric and Jim both profess to be Christians, and what I know of them, I would say that they are, unless there's things I don't know about them, which is probably true of all of us. But that's easy on the state ticket. You either vote for them or you write in somebody else because there's nobody else there. On the ballot for the county ticket. Now, let me just say, as we go down, there's no less importance in a county clerk or a county person. But you do understand that circuit clerks and county clerks, and they're not making legislation. So, you know, their voting record isn't available. You know who they are and different things like that. So, but you have a couple other people running unopposed. Elizabeth Jones for the circuit clerk. She's a Republican. She's running unopposed. I don't know anything about her. Diana Cromley. I've met her a couple times. Seems like a nice person. I don't know a thing about her. She's a Democrat. She's also running unopposed. So there's nobody to choose between there. County commissioner ticket. Both of these people from Gallipolis Ferry. Sam Nybert, Republican. Marquita Crum, the Democrat. You guys probably know a lot more about them than I do. So we're not going to talk too much about that. On county levels, once again, city and county levels, the amount of policy dictated is limited to that immediate township or county and does not hold as big of an impact on laws and things of that nature. So I really have no opinion. I have no facts on any of these individuals other than to say that some of them are going to have a really easy election because they're unopposed. On the ballot, constitutional amendments. There are a lot of questions about these. Lots of questions about these. And I know that those of us that come to Faith Gospel Church, if you sit here week in and week out and you know what we believe and what we stand for, I'm pretty confident and know how you're going to vote towards offices. I mean, I might be surprised, but that, like I said, that's between you and God. I'm not here to try to sway you. I'm just here to give you facts. So these amendments, we're going to talk about these, and I had to do a whole lot of homework. So I felt like I was back in college. I felt like I was back in a history class and in a law class. So we are going to talk about these because there were several questions. These are all going to be on the ballot. We get a vote for these as West Virginia citizens, and this is to amend. These are amendments to the Constitution of the great state of West Virginia. Amendment 1 limits state courts' ability to intercede or intervene or interfere with impeachment proceedings of the House of Delegates or Senate. So basically, in a nutshell, with impeachment judgments, it's not reviewable by any state court. So I can print this out in its entirety and let you read it, but it basically says the same thing with just a few more words in it. So basically this says that if the House of Delegates or the state Senate impeach one of their members or a judiciary, that there is no way that they can have this reviewed by any state court. How you feel about that is your opinion, but I will say this: even murderers and rapists and terrorists have the right to appeal to higher courts. And I know politicians are below that for some people, but surely to goodness, these men and women deserve the right to appeal to a state level court. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what else is in there, and I have no biblical principle to give you here. That's all it says. And that's what it says in a nutshell. If they bring an impeachment hearing and they are impeached, they have no recourse on the state level. So the next Amendment 2, and we're just going to touch briefly on these. I really want to get to the third one because that really deals with us as a church. Provides the legislature with the authority to exempt tangible machinery and equipment, personal property directly used in business activity, tangible inventory, personal property directly used in business activity, personal property tax on motor vehicles, and so on and so on. So basically, this will be a constitutional amendment to eliminate certain taxes, most notably for farmers, any of their equipment and machinery they use, and most notable for anyone that drives their car. Jim Justice, Uncle Jim, as we call him at our house, he's gone around stomping and saying that he doesn't like this. He doesn't like this. He thinks that there's legislature that can pass to change. There's no biblical principle involved here. This is a matter of your opinion, but I can tell you this: the tax burden in West Virginia is far greater than when I lived in the state of Kentucky. I know that, and I do know that businesses come and go, and they're going to come and go. We have business coming with the current tax, so. You do with that what you will. I'm not going to offer any opinion. I know my opinion, but it's just that. It's my opinion. I have no biblical principle whereby to back up my opinion. It's just my opinion. There has been a lot. Yes? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Doesn't mean that they will. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So there, absolutely, and there are ups and downs for both of this, and we're going to address that at the end too about these three amendments that I'm not really talking too much about because there's no biblical stance whereby I can say anything. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. That's not anywhere in the law. We can print out the entirety of the law. Yeah, and that's what they say, and that's where politics is dirty pool because they say a lot of things that's not in that law. This is basically like Vanessa said. What it says here on the screen. This is basically the entirety of the law with a few other verbiages added on. It basically just gives a lot of power to the legislature to determine taxes and things. It doesn't have anything to do with abortion. Nothing to do with abortion is listed. Yeah, and that's where it comes. That's where it muddies the water as well, because it's really you come down to how much power you're willing to give a group of people. Um, we'll talk about that here in just a minute too. Let's talk about three because I do want to talk about this one, and then we're going to lump those other three that this does affect churches directly. Amendment 3 authorizes the incorporation of churches or religious denominations, would provide churches the right to incorporate if so desired for additional protections that incorporation provides. Does not require incorporation, does not interfere with any current rights of the church. It does not affect anything. You do not have to be incorporated. I will say this about this amendment being a pastor of a church. Every other state in the union has this guaranteed constitutionally that churches have the right to incorporate. When I say every other state, I mean 49 states have the right to incorporate. This has also been provided provisionally to churches within the state of West Virginia already. They have been granted articles of incorporation if they so chose. So it is not outside the realm of possibility to incorporate without a constitutional amendment. They look at it on a case by case basis. I will say this: Faith Gospel Church, I don't believe we're going to incorporate, even if they do pass this law. I have no desire to incorporate, and I have no thought that we should incorporate. Should churches have the right to incorporate if they want to? I think they should, but I don't think that's something that we would ever do here. You do get a few additional protections. You're able to transfer property a little easier and different things of that nature. But this does not in any way affect one way or the other. And there are people that come down on both sides of this. Pastors come down on both sides of this. This does not affect one way or the other. If this passes, nothing is going to change here. That's what I really wanted to talk about. This does not interfere with Faith Gospel Church. Either way. If it passes, that just means it's constitutionally guaranteed that churches can incorporate. If it doesn't pass, that just means we're exactly where we are now, that churches can incorporate. They just have to jump through a few more hoops. This doesn't affect us. This is not a grab to try and take rights away from churches. This simply is some churches want to incorporate. I know a few larger churches that have incorporated, that some of them are glad they did. Some of them wanted to abolish their incorporation. That's their business. So that's this constitutional amendment. Don't let this scare you in any way that it's going to affect us one way or the other. I don't feel that we'll incorporate, but I mean, who knows? Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, we can cover that with our church constitution. We don't have to be incorporated for that. Also, with accepting members of particular lifestyles or whatever, we can address that in the church constitution. And where we're a private religious organization, that's not affected one way or the other. What it does help with, in some cases, would be lawsuits against the church. The corporation would protect, shield certain aspects in that. So for lawsuits and things of that nature. But for so far as people being in our pulpit, yeah, and that has happened. And the thing of it is, you call the Christian Law Association, and they represent us for free, and they would be able to go through that. As a religious organization, though, right now in the United States of America, our Constitution as a church protects us from that, as long as it's worded as such. Now, that's where we need to look at our Constitution to add some amendments of our own. And that's also another reason I want to talk about these amendments. We need to, this upcoming year, we really need to revamp our church constitution to include protections for the church and for your dear old pastor and for the members and the membership. Yes, sir.
One thing I did hear on this,
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw it out there. One reason for pushing it out was also supposedly to protect the leadership of the church
Correct.
from lawsuits.
Yes.
Being individually recipients
Correct.
of a lawsuit.
As it stands right now, if someone did come to Faith Gospel Church and they did decide to sue your dear old pastor, it would be me. If they decided if we were incorporated as an agent of the corporation would observe the lawsuit, not myself. So that's also why some pastors really like the incorporation. I'm not really scared to be sued. I mean, I don't know whether they're going to take that dodge, I guess, but that is very true, Eddie, because I'm acting as an agent of the corporation, or anyone else that's employed by the church. If there's anyone else employed by the church, they're acting as an agent of the corporation, so they can't absorb a personal lawsuit. It would fall on the corporation. So that is something that provides those protections as well.
I mean,
I believe that is true because they're agents, they're elected officials within the corporation. Whether they receive a salary or not is inconsequential. They are agents of the corporation. Yes, ma'am.
The other thing about being incorporated is you have to come up with your articles of incorporation, your state law, taxes, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that that you have to file. The IRS can go in and look at what you're doing, and if you're not doing what you state in your article, I mean, it gives them a look into what it is that you're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it does, I mean, it may prevent some of the things we talked about, but it
Mm-hmm.
also gives the IRS the ability to look in and to monitor what it is that you're doing. If you're not doing what is stated, they can take that, they can take your status away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a slam dunk.
No.
Done, that's all. There's a lot of things that follow along with that.
Also, one of the main reasons I would not want to incorporate because I feel like you give governmental control to a degree. And even though they say it will not affect your tax exempt status, I don't trust the government, just so you know. And that is true. They get a peek behind the curtain. And right now, there's a huge steel wall. Right now, they still can't peer in because the Constitution protects us. But yes, that is also something to consider with those. So all that to be said, even if this does pass, if you choose to vote for this, that's your fine opinion, and 49 out of 50 states do it. But just know that churches, if they have the desire to incorporate, they actually can right now in the state of West Virginia. It's just not constitutionally guaranteed. Fourth Amendment clarifies the rules and policies promulgated by the State Board of Education. They're subject to legislation review, approval, amendment, or rejection. So basically, in a nutshell, it provides more power to the legislature to oversee the West Virginia Board of Education. I learned a lot about the West Virginia Board of Education during this. There are 9 members of the state board, and they are appointed in overlapping terms, which means this. Uncle Jim Justice probably appointed 1 or 2, and then his predecessor, there's still some that they had appointed. They are political appointees. What is being said, kicked around about this, the politicians say they need more oversight, not just bureaucrats. It comes down to, trusting the elected officials as well. I do want to lump these 3, not the church and corporation in, but the Amendment 1, 2, and 4 in a little group here real quick. It does put a lot of power in the state legislature. Amendment 1 bypasses the judiciary altogether. I don't know a whole lot about politics, but I do remember from social studies there's supposed to be an executive, a legislation, and a judicial branch. By not allowing judicial review, you're taking away the balance of checks and powers that the forefathers intended. So without a biblical precedent, I don't agree with 1. And 2, like Ms. Vanessa said, that doesn't guarantee that taxes are going to get any better. And I hate to tell everybody, I don't know that taxes are going to get any better anyways. But it is a huge power play by the legislative branch in the state of West Virginia. And Amendment 4 also is a power play. So this is what we can see. You're putting a whole lot of stock in one group of individuals. What you do with that is your business. I cannot give you biblical principle to vote for 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is just fact-finding venture. Did you have something to say, Heather? You're a teacher. I'm just asking you if you have anything to say about 4.
No, other than just to give my opinion. But
Please do. Yeah.
Basically, I don't agree with Pat that
Mhm.
it's 4 because there's already people telling us what we're doing, and that should be telling us what we're doing.
Mhm.
And I really don't want the legislature to how to do my job.
Yeah.
It makes me seem arrogant, maybe. But when people don't have no idea what we do every day, they should help.
Oh.
I don't want to give that power.
Trust me, as a nurse.
I don't have anything to hide.
Yeah, trust me, as a nurse, we've been under their thumb for a long time. They have absolutely no idea what goes on in a hospital or a nursing home or a dialysis center. The only more regulated industry in the country, other than nuclear power plants, are nursing homes. That's what happens when the legislature takes over things they don't understand. But I digress. You look at those for what they are. You make an opinion. I'm not going to give you. You can ask me my opinion. I'll tell you my opinion if you really, really want. But the important thing is to have an opinion politically. these amendments and these things of this nature, there's really nothing in it that is going to affect our religious liberties at this point. None of these things really do. Now, the incorporation, if a church chooses to incorporate, they do open themselves up for a lot of things. So, there's really nothing I can say biblically, don't vote for a 4 or vote for 4. I can't tell you that because there's nothing biblically. Do your due diligence in your and figure out where you stand. Your opinion might be different from Heather's as a school teacher on 4, or might be different from Vanessa's, who works in taxation department, on 2. And that's where you should have a healthy discussion, not an argument, but find out opposing views and why they exist. That's the thing we need to remember as Christians, and we're going to talk about this at the end. Politics should not be divisive. It should be something that we understand as a whole. The levies is the last thing on the ballot. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to hit some biblical perspectives, and then we'll be done. The levies, and there's actually really only one levy. It provides additional funding to Mason County schools. You can look on the back of that ballot, and there's all kinds of stuff. Funds will be used for professional and service salary supplements, personnel taxes and benefits, textbooks and supplies, extra and co-curricular activities, construction and repair buildings, the PRO officers, several other things. There's all kinds of things that this money is going to go towards. So you can read that, and it's even broken down on the back of that ballot how much money is going to go to each thing. Yes, it costs you more money, but you do get a lot for your money. So that's something else. There's no biblical thought on what you do. I personally think that education is a great thing, and we should support it, but that's an opinion. That's not anything I can back up. This is what I really want to look at, though. Believers' responsibility. We have a responsibility as Christians politically. And the things we've talked about this evening, other than the election of the officials, the amendments, and the levies, like I said, they don't really affect too much our religious liberties or anything of that nature. They do affect our lives, though. So what we should really do is pray before we vote. We should pray before we vote. So oftentimes people will say, well, I'm a Democrat. My father was a Democrat. My grandfather was a Democrat. My great-grandfather was a Democrat. My great-great-great-grandfather fought alongside Democrats in the Civil War. And we're all Democrats. We always have been. And tell me why. They can't tell you why. Well, what do they believe? Why are you voting for this person? Well, they're for the working man. Let me let you on a little secret. None of them are for the working man. Okay? This thought of Democrats are for the working man and Republicans are for rich people, they're all for themselves. Let's just be honest. 90% of the time, that's the truth. So pray. That's how we should do all things as Christians. We bathe it in prayer. Educate yourself. What do candidates say they believe? What do their actions prove they believe? There have been people that have said, I'm a conservative Republican and I am just like you. And then you look at how they vote, and you would never guess that they were a, quote, Christian, because they vote for abortion rights, they vote for alternative lifestyle rights, they vote to decrease religious liberties. But on those beautiful ads that they have, I'm a Christian. So find out what they believe and how they actually vote, how they actually live their life. What does God's word say about the issues? This is a big thing with Christians that we have forgotten. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. All thy ways does not simply mean your Christian daily walk. It means your walk, always. That means your political associations, affiliations. That means the groups or clubs that you're a part of. All thy ways, every way. You should acknowledge him and let God direct our paths in even things like political issues. We should always look to see who is most closely related to me in their walk with the Lord. Now, that being said, sometimes there might be a Mormon that's a real conservative and a Catholic that's a real liberal. Well, I can't vote for a Mormon. Listen, folks, you're not asking them to come and preach. Let's just be honest. We're not calling them to be our pastor. We're sending them to do a job in the state house. And that was always the argument with certain people that, were just ran for a political office. We won't name him, but let's say his name was Brump. He's a terrible person. I know that he always stood with Israel and he always voted the way I wanted him to on certain issues. Was he the best person that ever lived? Absolutely not. Would I shake his hand? I would be afraid I couldn't wash off what I got on it. But I wasn't calling him to be my pastor. I was calling him to be an elected official. So that's what we have to look at, is how they vote. Is it in line with protecting my religious rights and liberties? Is it in line with what I believe about abortion? Is it in line with what I believe about quote unquote gay rights? Is it? And if the answer to all those things are no, then you shouldn't vote for them. If the answer to all those things don't line up with the Bible, you should not vote for them, period. Vote. Believer's responsibility, vote. After prayer and preparation, you must be productive. Vote. I just don't vote because there's no good people to vote for. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. Pray for your elected officials. Pray this way for your elected officials. Pray for their salvation, pray for their protection, pray for wisdom, and pray for courage. That's how they need you to pray for them. If they're lost, they need to be saved. Because the only way you can make good decisions in your life is if you make that first best decision to be saved. That's not always the case. You can't always find a saved person to vote for, in which case you have to look at their religious worldview and how they stand on certain issues. Pray for their salvation, their protection, for their wisdom, for courage, and pray for all these things for even the politicians you don't like. President Joe Biden, I'm not a huge fan. Everybody knows that. I pray for him every day. He's my president. I pray for him. If I was still in the army, I would have to go to fight war for him. So I've still prayed. Pray for your elected officials. They need your prayer. They desire your prayer. I exhort, therefore, that first off, all supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, including elected officials, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. Pray for your leaders. Believers' responsibility is to get involved, to make your voice heard, call, email, write, sign petitions, visit the Capitol. Once a year, they do this thing called Capitol Connection. They go up, and all we do is pray with the delegates and the senators. We don't push a political agenda. We go and we say, hey, how can I pray with you today? You'd be surprised how many of them have a lot of prayer requests and how many of them are real God-fearing people. But make your voice heard. Support godly candidates. There's not always going to be a Christian on the ballot, the one that most closely aligns with our godly values. Pray for godly candidates. Pray that they win. It's not wrong to pray that a godly person wins. It's okay. Become a godly candidate. This is something that pastors don't talk about, but I'm going to because I feel like it's my job to. If there's no good choice, become the good choice if God leads you in that. There are no godly people in politics anymore. Why don't more godly people then get in politics? It's a mess. But the best way to affect change is from the inside. Don't look to your pastor. I'm never going to run for a political office. I guarantee that 1,000,000%. Could you imagine me on the campaign trail? I'd start preaching, throwing my coat, kitting over buckets, and then I'd be arrested. But that doesn't mean that there's not people sitting here that could be a good godly candidate. I think it's my duty as your pastor to encourage that in folks. That is some people's calling, believe it or not, to be a godly candidate. Information. Early voting is October 26th through November the 5th, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Saturdays, 9 to 5. That's on the second floor of the Mason County Courthouse. Vote early and vote often. That's what we do in the state of Kentucky. It's already started. You can go to the courthouse and you can vote early if you want to beat the rush. These are some websites that are in your packet, and I would encourage all of you to look at it. And if you don't get on the internet, ask me, and I'll print these things out for you. All the information we got today came from one of these websites, West Virginia Baptist for Biblical Values. We all know the president of this organization. His name is Bo Burgess, just right across the street. You can go to their website. They have a lot of information about upcoming legislation that affects us statewide, nationally, court decisions that are being looked at. It's a really good place to get information about what's going on in the government. West Virginians for Life. You can go to West Virginians for Life. You can type in this pac.wvforlife.org, and they will give you the voting record from the last 10 years, I believe. I have it here in front of me. It's either the last 10 or 15 years. Every time that there was legislation about abortion rights in West Virginia, you can look and see how your representative and senator voted every single time on abortion rights. And then they even have a percentage on the side. 20% of the time they voted for life. 100% of the time they voted for life. 0% of the time they voted for life. And don't think I'm just trying to push a political party, because there's some people with R's by their name that have a 0 in that other column. You'd be surprised. You can go and see it. It's a matter of public record. But if you go there, it specifically shows you their voting record for the last 10 or 15 years on abortion rights. You can register to vote online, sos.wv.gov/elections. You can't vote unless you're registered. The voters' self-defense system, Vote Smart. This is where you can go on to this Just Facts, and it will tell you about your political candidates, and it's nonpartisan. It just has information of what they believe on abortion, what they've said about gun control, what they've said about amendments, anything they've said, they capture and they keep on here. You can also see who's funding these people. If, National Skin Hands Anonymous is giving somebody $100,000 for their campaign, there's probably a reason you don't want to vote for them if the skinheads want to support them, just saying. You see where the money comes from. You see what they voted on, how they voted. You can capture and look at their votes for all the major things that have come out in the last 10 years. If they were in office, you can see every way they voted. It tells you right there in a snap. National Right to Life, you can go on here, and it's a congressional scorecard, and it's very similar to what you have for the West Virginians for Life, but the National Right to Life, you can type this in your browser, voterservice.net/NRLC/home, and it gives you a congressional scorecard every time in the last 20 to 30 years that a vote has come up on abortion rights. You can look and see how people voted. You can also go on this, and it gives each president that we've had a scorecard on how they have stood when they were politicians before and since they've been president. It gives you a scorecard on how they view life. So these are all things that, I hope it was helpful. I hope it was okay. If it wasn't, we won't do it again, but I thought we would try it just this once. I do think it is important for all people to vote. I even think it's important for people that I don't agree with to vote, because that's your right to vote. Christians should have a voice. Even though we're falling in numbers in the polls, statistically, if you believe what people tell pollsters, we still should have a Christian majority. Yet we are split 50-50 on political issues, which tells me that people don't vote Christian. There's only one way that a Christian can vote, and that's in line with the Bible. Anytime someone is a proponent for abortion, I will not vote for them. I don't care what else they stand for, period. That's my stance. If they say, I believe that we could kill babies, I'm not voting for them, period. Other issues that we have to look at, religious liberties are stripped away from us at an alarming rate, and it's because we have elected people that take our religious liberties away, and then we're surprised when they do it. So you have to look at the whole. You have to look at where they stand. Be informed. Be an informed voter. Don't just go and vote for somebody because you think Pastor David wants you to. Go and vote for him because you want to. And if we're all Christians and we all believe the same Bible and we all read the same things, we should probably all vote pretty much the same way. Now, on these amendments, who knows? I mean, there's opinions on different things. There's no clear biblical stance. But on your senators and delegates and representatives, there are clear, definitive, biblical things that you should look at as a Christian. And if you don't, you're failing your God-given responsibility as a Christian to make sure these people are kept in check. So that is our lesson for the evening. Boy, I feel like I should go and maybe apply for a substitute teacher spot at the. I'm not that crazy. But pray about how you're going to vote. Talk to people. Talk to people that know about things. If you have questions, Vanessa's and ask that. Heather knows some things. I'm sure school teachers. Every time there's a nurse vote, I know everything about that nurse vote. Everything. I know who sponsored it, why it's coming through, and how it's going to affect me. So ask people that know. And because I don't, nobody knows everything, but everybody knows something. So let's dismiss in prayer and get out of here because I'm getting hot. Dear God,